Now, meet a bro who won't let a physical handicap get in the way of a two-wheeled round-the-world tour.
My name is Dave Barr, and I've just completed a journey around the world that has taken me from the bottom tip of Africa to the highest point of Europe, the North Cape in the Arctic. From the Richmond, Virginia to the top of Alaska on the Beaufort Sea to the bottom tip of South America overland in Tierra del Fuego. And Asia has been from Hong Kong through China, Mongolia, east-west Siberia, Russia to Murmansk in the Arctic. And from there back to England. Australia was circumnavigated and I made it up to Cape York. Now, many places in the world I've been, no one's ever been on a Harley-Davidson, and one of the reasons is no one's been stupid enough to try it. It's made it very unique and far more interesting. But the question would come up as why I'm making a trip such as this. The answer to that would go back to August 29th, 1981. While traveling in a light vehicle in southern Angola, we ran over a landmine. I was serving in the South African Defense Forces at the time. The end result of that landmine was 9.5 months in one military hospital. In that 9.5 months, I had 20 major operations, 4 of which were amputations, which left me with my right leg off above the knee, up here, and the left leg just below the knee, there. All right. I'm deaf in one ear. I have burns over arms, hands, back, all right, and a partial hearing loss on the other side. And if that's not enough, I'm colorblind. The end result was on my first ride after I came back to the United States, the thought came to my mind in my first moments of utter and sheer joy on the motorcycle, wouldn't it be something to make a trip around the world on this whole machine that people with disabilities the world over could take from me a lesson to help improve their own lives? And this is the theme of the whole journey around the world. The preparations I had to make for the motorcycle was first I had to put a heavier front end. So, i.e. we have the wide glide front end, which is 4 inches over to give me a bit more ground clearance, which still wasn't enough because I've smashed four outer primaries and 2 inner primaries to nothing. Of course, a belt drive. If I hadn't had a belt drive, I wouldn't have got past Zaire. Within the first week of Zaire, I forced the primary with mud and rocks twice and broke the belts. The other thing was, of course, it was a super glide. Well, now it's more or less a bastard glide, but you've got the crash bars front and rear because there has been days where I've had to pick the thing up as many as 20 times a day. And if it's all the way down the dirt, it makes it a lot harder to pick up. The other thing is for like dogs and small animals, they tend to hit the front tire, hit the crash bar, and then be thrown away from the motorcycle. And the other part too is the carry rack. When I travel across the Namib Desert, my Harley-Davidson carry rack fell apart. I tried another system going across Africa, which was a box system. It carried 24 liters of extra fuel, and it also had a room for tools, spare parts, you name it, but it was all top heavy, and it had to be that way, fitting inside the crash bars. The reason for that was when you went down through a set of dual tire ruts in Africa that are sitting 4 and 5 feet high, you could have nothing wider than the crash bars or it would be torn off of the motorcycle. While I was down in Tierra del Fuego, the temperature was dropping down centigrade to 20 minus. It was so cold that my petrol was freezing coming out of the tank. When I got into the carburetor, of course, there was heat there. And what the end result was, it's causing condensation to flash out of the petrol, giving me all kinds of problems. I was having to stop about every 3-4 miles in this type of low temperature, pull the carburetor apart, get the water out, put it together, and ride 3 or 4 more miles. And this went on all day. I ended up anyway laying upside down in about 2 foot of frozen water. The long and the short of it is, when I got to a depot where I could work on it, we put a shield around the front of the motorcycle to stop all air from hitting the front of the engine. Money and concern must be for the motorcycle, because the motorcycle is the vehicle to which you will make it over the terrain and the areas you want to go. Another question that comes to people's mind would be, is there any times I've had open confrontations with people? And there have been many Two times that particularly stick out in my mind is once when I was in Zaire. I was passing a Zairean army camp and I fell down in the mud, of which there's mud everywhere across the northern part of the country. There's no paved road. And while I was laying there in the mud, all the soldiers come running out with their rifles pointed at me, and I got upset about it. It irritated me, and I pointed at them. I says, "S'il vous plaît, messieurs, petit aide, give me a little help." You know, and I said it in such a commanding manner that they went over and they stacked their rifles, and they came back, got into the mud, and helped lift the motorcycle up. And the way it was loaded, it was about 900 pounds, okay, riding through places like that. And once they got the motorcycle up, they had to then plow it out of the mud. I come out of the mud, and when they saw I had a disability, the sergeant made them all line up, and he saluted, and I went and reviewed the troops and shook hands. And funny enough, the last fellow in the line in broken English said to me, you know, "God go with you." And certainly I needed his help. Another time that comes to mind right off the bat is out in the Sahara, where I had crashed down in a low area and let off the throttle. When you do that on that sand and you lose way, the motorcycle stops immediately. Of course you don't, and I come hurtling over the handlebars. After sitting there for a couple of hours out there in the middle of nowhere by myself, a couple of Tuaregs come along on camels. You know, broadswords up the back, knives, the whole 9 yards. They get off the camels and they walk over. No words were spoken. We all of us started pushing and digging to get the motorcycle out of the sand and back to hard ground. Once that was done, they made the universal sign for money. Now, generally, I pass out ballpoint pens to people that help me, but I could tell these two bastards didn't want ballpoint pens. So I gave them all the Zairean money that I had, which was about $3.50, and that's a lot of money to these people. Then one of them grabbed my jacket, and I thought, to heck with that. I grabbed the jacket back. One of them grabbed something else, and I grabbed it back. I always carry a can of CS gas, very strong German stuff that I keep with me. And I had the can of it in my hand. They didn't know what this was, so they didn't make any quick movements towards a knife or a sword. In the end, once everything was loaded onto the motorcycle, they looked at me and I looked at them for a good many minutes. I don't know how long it was. It seemed like forever. Finally, they just back off and went to their camels. Had one of them gone for a knife, I would have squirted them and then gone over and squirted the camels, because I've had rather negative experience with camels in the past anyway. I don't like them. I've been from the low and high points of the 6 continents in the world, things that are very unique and incredible. I've traveled across the Sahara Desert and the Namib Desert, the Gobi Desert, to name a few of the major places. But why have I been able to do all this? Well, it's not just me. I've had the help of my fellow man the world over. I've had no central logistics team, just people the world over that's cared enough to make this once ever journey around the world to the ends of the earth very possible. And to those people all over the world, some the very high and mighty, and others the very common people, my hat would be off and I'd say thank you. And I'd say thank you to God and Jesus Christ himself, or I wouldn't be here on a number of occasions.